So my manager talks to 90% of my clients. We make that introduction to them. But when it comes right down to the nitty gritty, it's me.
Yeah.
It's taking the fall. It's me that's taking the hit if something goes wrong.
Wayne Carini, the face of chasing classic cars, has built a reputation as one of the most respected figures in the world of vintage cars. From rescuing forgotten treasures in dusty barns to restoring rare classics to their former glory, Carini has become a household name among car enthusiasts. But while millions admire his expertise and passion, not everyone is thrilled with the impact of his growing influence. In recent years, whispers of discontent have grown louder in the classic car community, with some accusing him of distorting the market, prioritizing profits, and even alienating everyday collectors. Over the years, Wayne Carini's extensive platform has undeniably elevated the profile of rare and vintage cars. Through chasing classic cars, he's showcased vehicles previously overlooked by the public, bringing attention to their unique history and craftsmanship. However, with this heightened visibility has come an unintended consequence: rising market prices. Many collectors argue that whenever a car is featured on the show, its value tends to skyrocket, fueled by increased demand from new buyers. For instance, a once affordable classic might suddenly become unattainable after it gains exposure to a wealthier audience, a pattern that has left some longtime enthusiasts feeling priced out of the market. This phenomenon, while not exclusively Wayne Carini's doing, is a recurring source of frustration. Critics within the community point out that Carini's business often caters to high-end buyers, focusing on rare, premium classics that appeal to wealthy collectors. As a result, they argue, the hobby is increasingly shifting away from the average enthusiast, those who restore cars for personal enjoyment, and becoming dominated by those who can treat these vehicles as investments. This has raised questions about whether Carini's influence has widened the gap between elite collectors and everyday fans of classic cars. While Wayne Carini himself has not publicly addressed these specific criticisms, his role in shaping the modern classic car market is impossible to ignore. For many, the debate centers on whether his efforts have broadened appreciation for these vehicles or unintentionally fueled a divide in an already competitive space. Wayne Carini's work on restoring classic cars has been at the heart of his career, showcasing the painstaking efforts it takes to revive vintage vehicles to their former glory. Yet, even this aspect of his work is not without controversy. Critics within the classic car community have raised concerns about the balance between restoration and authenticity for vehicles featured on chasing classic cars. One recurring critique is that the pressure to meet television production deadlines may sometimes lead to restorations that prioritize speed over historical accuracy. Purists argue that certain techniques or modern materials used during some projects take away from the car's originality and dilute its true character. These concerns stem from a deep belief among traditional collectors that classic vehicles should reflect their period as authentically as possible, even if that compromises aspects of performance or appearance. Furthermore, some in the community view the highly polished and pristine restorations seen on the show as catering more to investment buyers than to genuine enthusiasts, those who appreciate warts and all imperfections that tell the story of a car's journey through time. This tension highlights the divide between those who see cars as historic artifacts versus those who value them as commodities. However, Carini's defenders argue that his work preserves cars that may otherwise be lost entirely. They believe his approach not only keeps these vehicles on the road, but also introduces their history to broader audiences, inspiring a new generation of classic car enthusiasts. For many, a restored car, even if slightly modernized, is better than one left to rust in a forgotten garage. This ongoing debate places Carini at an interesting crossroads. Should restoration prioritize perfection for the modern collector, or preserve the imperfections that embody a car's originality? For some, his influence strikes the right balance. For others, it represents the commercialization of something deeply personal. One of the most persistent criticisms directed at Wayne Carini is the perception that his work has contributed to the commercialization of the classic car hobby. For some longtime collectors, what was once a passion-driven pastime has turned into a competitive marketplace, dominated by skyrocketing prices and high-stakes sales, a transformation they believe Carini has helped fuel. Critics argue that Carini's growing profile has shifted the focus of the hobby, making it seem more about financial profit than the simple love of classic cars. They point out that many of the cars he handles on Chasing Classic Cars are showcased for their potential as high-value investments, appealing to wealthy buyers rather than to everyday enthusiasts, restoring cars for the joy of it. This, they say, has pushed the hobby further into the realm of exclusivity, alienating those who simply appreciate the craftsmanship and history of classic vehicles. Carini, for his part, has acknowledged the financial side of the business. In past interviews, he's explained that buying and selling cars is a critical part of keeping his restoration shop afloat and sustaining the industry as a whole. "This is how I make my living," he said, showing a practical perspective on the intersection of passion and commerce. While Carini doesn't shy away from the fact that it's a business, this pragmatic approach has still left some purists feeling that the heart of the hobby is being overshadowed by money. At the center of this debate is a broader question about the future of the classic car world. Can the passion for preserving and celebrating automotive history coexist with the growing emphasis on profit and exclusivity? While Carini continues to showcase exceptional restorations and sales, he has also inadvertently stoked discussions on whether the soul of the hobby is being lost in the process. While Wayne Carini's rise to fame has brought the world of classic cars into the spotlight, some argue that the success of Chasing Classic Cars has come at a cost to the broader community aspect of the hobby. Critics feel that the show's focus has shifted over the years, spotlighting Carini's personal journey and connections with elite collectors, rather than celebrating the everyday enthusiasts who form the backbone of the car culture. One point of contention, often raised, is the perception that Carini's show reflects favoritism toward wealthy clients, as many of the cars featured are owned by or sold to individuals with deep pockets. For some, this focus appears to exclude the broader community of car hobbyists who may not have the resources to compete at the high-end auctions or invest in million-dollar restorations. This has led to claims that the show perpetuates an image of exclusivity, making the hobby feel less accessible to newcomers or those with smaller budgets. Additionally, some within the community criticize the way Carini's personality is central to the show's narrative. While his expertise and passion are undisputed, there are opinions that Chasing Classic Cars emphasizes his personal brand over the shared spirit of the hobby, highlighting his achievements rather than the collaborative effort of restorers, mechanics, and small-time collectors who keep car culture alive. Despite this, Carini's influence and network remain undeniable, and supporters argue that his platform has brought classic cars into the mainstream like never before. But for those critical of his approach, the question lingers. Has the spotlight on Wayne Carini inadvertently dimmed the focus on the collective passion and camaraderie that originally defined the classic car community? Supporters of Wayne Carini argue that his contributions to the classic car world have done more good than harm. Through Chasing Classic Cars, he's introduced vintage automobiles to a global audience, inspiring new enthusiasts and showcasing the craftsmanship and history behind forgotten treasures. Without his work, many classic cars might have been abandoned or lost forever. Carini himself has addressed criticism, acknowledging that selling cars is a necessary part of his business and survival in a competitive market. "It's not just about the cars, it's about the stories behind them," he's said in interviews, emphasizing his focus on preserving history rather than solely chasing profit. Additionally, many point out that broader market trends, like growing demand and global interest, play a bigger role in rising prices than one individual or show. For supporters, Carini's influence ensures that classic cars remain an enduring passion rather than a forgotten niche.